In the spirit of Women's History Month, and on behalf of the campus-wide staff development and the speech department, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Elane Norych. Ms. Geller is a child survivor of the Holocaust who is here to speak to us about the persecution of the Jews, the atrocities that she personally endured, and her ultimate survival from the death sentence imposed on some 6 million Jews. I first met Elane Geller in August of 1996 at the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles. It's an international center and a tolerance museum that is dedicated to Holocaust remembrance and to the defense of human rights. Ms. Geller was speaking that day, as she regularly does, as part of an educational opportunity for the public to interface with Holocaust survivors. Ms. Geller is a sought-after speaker whose engagements have spanned the nation. Most recently, she submitted her story to be published in an intercultural reader entitled Among Us, Essays on Intercultural Communication. Her message reaches diverse audiences, and I'm very happy that you are among them. For if you are willing to internalize the least portion of what you hear this morning, you will never be the same. Cornel West, in his book, Restoring Hope, poses a question to Maya Angelou, a question about ignorance being the path of least resistance. And Maya Angelou responds in this way. We've got the courage to tell the truth about America in relationship to white supremacy and other forms of evil. The lack of courage is cowardliness. And courage is the most important virtue, because without courage, you cannot be consistently fair or kind or generous or loving, you see. With Dr. Angelou's wisdom in mind, would you please help me to welcome the most courageous woman I know, Ms. Elane Norych Geller.
You can all hear me? Yes. Great. The magic I don't get. I have no wires, just here. I guess it's what's left of my innocence. My name is Elane Norych Geller. I am thrilled and honored to be here amongst all of you. I spend just a very, very few minutes explaining what probably is for my comfort, the spirit in which I address you. It's very important to me. Then my personal testimony. With the intent of prevention, I am not here, or anywhere for that matter, to teach anyone to hate anyone else. Quite the opposite. What my life is about is prevention. It is a selfish journey because very few things scare me. What scares me are people that think academically only. Oh, I could never do that. Let me present myself to you in the spirit in which I live. I am painfully aware of how low we can become when we pollute this planet ethically, morally, and spiritually. I care about the rainforest. I care about the ozone layer. I really do. But if we do not attend to keeping the planet spiritually and ethically and morally just, we won't have to worry about the physical aspects of the planet. We won't be here to see it. I know that if any of you in this audience were to go after one of my children, if I could, in that spirit and in that moment, I would kill you. I do not want to live in a place on any planet where that kind of climate exists. I believe that racism and anti-Semitism and bigotry of any kind is as contagious as AIDS and any other communicable disease. It is also a disease that we don't need a prescription for to cure, just need some self-examination, some rethinking, some truly understanding that even the person we don't like has a right to live in dignity. I don't like everybody. Not everybody likes me. It's okay. It's all right. But I would defend with my life, the right of every single human being to be treated equally in the eyes of the law. That's all I ask. You don't like me? Don't have anything to do with me. That's easy enough. But do not deny me my right to be protected equally under the law. Now, 6 million of my brethren were murdered. Out of that 6 million, 1.5 million children under the age of 17. An additional 5.5 million non-Jews. I stand here before you as a survivor, as a human being first and foremost. Not as an American, not as a woman, not as a Jew, and yet all of those things, but first and foremost as a human being. And that's what we share, and we better understand that. None of these numbers, incidentally, include soldiers. An additional 5.5 million non-Jews. Holocaust is not just about Jews. Gypsies and gays, political dissidents, Jehovah's Witnesses, anyone that did not go along with the plan. And the plan was to murder all of the Jews of Europe, 11.5 million Jews. As it was, 1 out of every 3 Jews was murdered. We need to be historically accurate. Loss is loss. The 5.5 million non-Jews, as precious, as lost, as mourned as the Jews. But in order to understand what was going on, you need to know that only the Jews were targeted for genocide. They planned to retool the others. Don't ask me how, I have no idea. So the Jews were targeted for annihilation. And who was it that targeted them for that? The most educated, the most erudite, the most learned, the most affluent, the most civilized, the nation that gave us Einstein and Mozart and Beethoven. So education, or what to do with it? What do we do with our knowledge is the crux. No Nazi soldier. Hitler's motto was to make Europe Judenrein, clean of Jews, 0 Jews. 1 less was to the good of the cause. And it was legal. A sovereign nation of that caliber, of any caliber, had on its book the rights of genocide. Never before in the history of civilized memory did that happen. Hitler wanted to build a master race. Tall, blonde, and blue-eyed people were the only ones that would have a right to live. And all of us, you can giggle if you want, all of us know what he looked like. Hardly the prototype for his perfection. Nevertheless, filled with such evil and such hatred and such determination for power that probably when he looked in the mirror, he saw what he wanted to see. Saw what he wanted to see. I was born in a small town in Poland called Wrocław. There are exceptions to everything I'm about to lay in front of you. Everything. Certainly, there were some good Germans, of course. And without question, there were some good Poles. There were also good white Americans that helped black Americans during slavery, smuggled them in underground tunnels. Does that mean that what the revisionists might say, that there never was slavery, as they're saying there never was a Holocaust, that we not study that because a few good people did the right thing? Now, obviously, we're not learning from our mistakes, so we have to keep restating it, relearning it. Hopefully something will change, and things do change. My family consisted of mother and father, 2 older brothers, an older sister. I was the youngest. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, everything I pray is in your lives. And we knew, as you know, as we know now, that war is bad for everybody. This is not a contest. This is about prevention, recognizing the disease early on and saying something. As I stand here in front of you, believe me, forever imprinted in my heart and soul is Bosnia, Rwanda, Armenia, slavery, everything. Because it's all man's inhumanity towards man, and we need to learn to prevent that, even a tad. We knew it would be worse for us, because Hitler did not invent anti-Semitism, he just perfected it into a science. We had ample history of being persecuted before Hitler. So, we needed to take certain precautions. In my family, and other families as well, my town consisted of 4,500 people. Close to 2,000 of them were Jews. We Jews had lived in Eastern Europe for hundreds of years. We paid taxes, we served in the army, we did everything required of good citizenry, and were never considered good citizens. First-class citizens, never. We were good citizens, but that was not what we were credited with. So we knew it would be worse for us. We knew. And my father hired a young seminarian, young man studying to be a priest, to tutor me in the kinds of things at age 4. I am one of the youngest survivors from the time that I was 4 years old till well past 8, a period of almost 5 years. I was imprisoned in one camp, one prison or another, only because I was a Jewish child. I am one of the few children survivors that was never hidden. I was in full view of the Nazis the entire time. It's an accident. So my father hired this young seminarian. He was to tutor me at age 4, the kinds of things that I would need to know in that setting in order to pass as a Christian child. Poland, throughout its history to the present, is an extremely religious country. Even under communism, they did not mess with the church. His Holiness at present is Polish, born not too far from where I was born. And so, perhaps in Warsaw or Krakow, this would not have been necessary. But in a small town where everything centers around the church, a child of 4 passing as a Christian child would need to know some children's stories, Sunday school kinds of things from the New Testament, would need to know some little hymns. I needed and got a false birth certificate, a false baptismal certificate, and an arrangement was made with a Christian family in our community that if the Nazis were to come into our town, I would be taken to this Christian home, left there for the duration of the war, and after the war, whoever survived in my family would come and claim me. This is not a very complicated arrangement. Many of these plans and arrangements were carried out precisely as planned for, and many were not. I'll explain in a moment. And so the day came and the Nazis marched into our town. The very earliest memory I have of the moment was my father putting on me, 4 years old, what felt like an enormous amount of clothing. So many dresses I could barely put my hands to my side. He took off my earrings. It was not uncommon for Nazi punks to grab a woman's ear as she was running and pull. And a child, of course, was open fair because all they had to do was just reach. He took my hand while the rest of the Jewish community was gathered on their knees in the town square. We started to walk towards the Christian home where he was about to leave me. My father noticed that here and there a door would open up with what appeared to be the head of a household, with a small child at his side. Walk the child up to the SS and say, "I don't know who this is. It's not my child. It must be a Jewish child that wandered in here by mistake." The child was killed immediately, and the accompanying adult immediately in front of everyone as an example that they were not to be messed with. The family of the child was located and they were killed. Remember the motto, Juden rein, 0 Jews. And the Christian family was punished as well, but not the same way as the Jewish family, not in any way the same way. When my father saw this betrayal, he decided to gamble and keep me with him. He felt at least that way for as long as was humanly possible, he would know what my end would be. As we survivors are getting older and older and there are fewer and fewer of us left, please understand that some of us have already gone to our graves, not being certain that the child or children we left in the care of others weren't either turned over to the SS when the Jews were moved out of the town, or the family became very fond of the child, baptized it, converted it, hid it from the Jewish family member after the war when they came together. And so my father and I joined the rest of my family. We found them in the town square. By the time we got there, about 20 to 30 minutes into this, 2 of my uncles were already dead. My father's youngest brother had a loaf of bread under his arm. In this bread, he put some jewelry. It was small things of value that we tried to hold on to be used as a bargaining chip for a piece of bread, for a favor, for anything. The bread fell, it split open, they saw it. They killed him and his brother-in-law with him. Around the large group of we Jews were small bunches of Jews, plucked out of the community for work. We were an active participant in this horrific recycling of our lives. We did the work. When our energies were used up, we were pushed into the ovens. Ovens and crematoria. The design for those are made by educated architects. Please understand that. And perhaps for doing this work so that they'd have a little more energy, they got an extra crust of bread for a short time. The caloric intake of a Holocaust prisoner, 400 calories a day. 200 in the morning, 200 at night, consisting of a triangular piece of Schwarzbrot, black bread, with some dirty water. That was to pass as soup. You can't live on that. It's a diet for attrition. It's not a diet for life. Around us and this group, and these small groups, was another group. This other group, not too far from where my family was being shot at. People were screaming and bleeding and dying and falling down. In that group were my grandparents and my mother. Revisionists say this never happened. Look at me. I'm not lying to you. The case of my grandparents in that small setting and a few other elderly like them, they weren't going to help them onto a truck, transport them elsewhere, and then kill them. That would not have been efficient, and they were very efficient. Everything was well thought out. My mother, I was told, was recovering from extremely minor surgery. They weren't going to put her on a gurney, get her well, and then kill her. We can talk about that later on. They killed her immediately, and right after that massacre and the people that died in it, we were quickly moved out of the center of town to a small holding camp. Camp was surrounded by electrified barbed wire. We were given armbands with yellow stars of David on them. It was, in truth, the end of our freedom. Different family members were sent to different work camps, death camps. You never knew where they were going, if you'd ever see them again. My 16-year-old sister was sent to Auschwitz, where at 16 she died in the ovens of Auschwitz. What was her crime? She was born a Jew. That was it. That was it. Auschwitz. Hitler tried twice to get into office. He almost won the first time and lost the second time he won. It was a time in Nazi Germany when the economy was worth nothing. There were no jobs. Kids couldn't go to college comfortably. And it was the perfect, the quintessential climate for scapegoating. The Jews, the Jews, the Jews. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your kids' place at university. You are a superior people. You should be working. They should be working for you, and it played well. It worked. So Auschwitz is born. Hadn't been there before. All of a sudden, The people in the surrounding area could see the smoke of Auschwitz, belching out smoke that smelled of human flesh burning. And suddenly they had jobs. They were making pillows out of human hair, jewelry out of gold inlay, and fertilizer out of our bones. Nobody asked, where are these jobs coming from? What's going on over there? German businessmen went into posh government offices, bid on enormous government contracts for Cyclone B gas, barbed wire, striped cloth, God knows what else, and things were getting better there too, and they didn't ask. Next, my aunt, my father's sister. One of the uncles killed early on was her husband. She never had any children of her own. She took care of me. She and I were sent to another place, a place called Stekachin, a small coal mining town, not too far away. What my father tried to do in the very beginning, later on it was not possible, is track us. Anybody that perhaps knew the family, or he would describe us, he would say, did you see my sister, my young daughter? If the answer was yes, with whatever of value he still had, he would bribe someone, get us brought to where he was, to keep us together as long as was humanly possible. He found my Aunt and I in Stekachin, arranged for her to be snuck out in the middle of the night. I was thrown over electrified barbed wire onto a large transport truck filled with coal. Both my aunt and I were buried under that coal, told not to cough, not to sneeze. These vehicles are inspected with enormous searchlight during wartime. We couldn't even breathe hardly. And we were reunited with my father and two brothers for a very, very short time. Then all five of us were sent to a very large work camp in Poland called Skarżysk. The camp was so large, had different sections. I never saw my father and brothers again, never knew if they were dead, alive, there in another country. They were no longer a fact of my life. And my aunt was put to work in a munitions factory. And there were a handful of other children in there. Just, we speculate, for sport, for their own humanity. They could get rid of us whenever they needed to. They didn't have to ask permission. So they kept us around. And my aunt and their caregivers, same instructions, I promise you. When I'm not with you, stay in the barracks. Don't be in anybody's face. Don't call attention to yourself. Stay. If you hear footsteps, run and hide. I obeyed her, or I promise you I wouldn't be here today. When I didn't, I got into trouble. I'll explain in a minute. During this 5-year period, I had typhoid, typhus, tuberculosis, never treated in the so-called infirmaries. What do you think they would do with a Jewish child if you brought in a sick child? Why would they kill you to get you? Why would they cure you to kill you? Why? Makes no sense. I had lice and rats in my hair. I have 2 punctured eardrums. I stole. I ate toothpaste. I drank urine. I did whatever was necessary. Whatever was necessary to fill my belly and stay alive. Many times when we children, a few of us wandered out, we were told to hold hands and look up as they hung rows and rows of people, and laughed as we children cowered. One time, just for fun, 2 SS soldiers looked at me, looked at each other and said, look at this hair. It's too pretty for a Jewish child. They shaved me bald. When my aunt came back from work and started to cry because she could hardly recognize me, they beat her with a rubber hose. Another time, when I wandered out, they addressed an enormous pack of German shepherds, talked to the dogs as though they were people, and I was the dog. Mensch, beiß dem Hund. Persons, bite this dog. And I was attacked and chewed on and bitten and mauled, and I begged and I cried and I pleaded, and eventually they called the dogs off. The physical scars are well healed. The emotional scars are not. To this moment, I go nowhere, I swear to you, that I don't make absolutely certain that the pet you own and love and treat well, I hope, is behind a locked door. When I'm confronted with a loose animal, I have a flashback. I become that child of the Holocaust again. screaming and begging and pleading for mercy. And as you can imagine, with it comes a loss of dignity, and sometimes I'm fine, just fine in a few minutes. And other times it takes much, much longer before I leave my home comfortably. We were then packed into railroad cars. The conditions are beyond description. Only to tell you that all of your physical needs were satisfied right where you were standing. What I remember most of all were my aunt's screams as she begged the other inmates not to eat me alive. And that train was taking us to a place called Bergen-Belsen, where Anne Frank died. And before you ask me, she was about 9 years older than I. She was only there a short time. Bergen-Belsen, as the war was beginning to end, was one of the most diseased camps of the Third Reich. It was a small camp initially, and as they started to lose the war, they packed people in tightly so they could kill more. And it was so diseased, the Allies were hesitant to even come into it. Anne Frank was there about 3 weeks and died within 3 weeks. Her sister died almost immediately, and I never met her. As I say, she was about 9 years older than I. The train stopped a good distance outside the barracks. We marched to the barracks on ground that was solid ice. Our feet froze. My feet froze so badly. When they began to thaw out, my aunt would stick her fist in my mouth so I wouldn't cry out, because then it was beyond random killing. Arriving in these barracks were women from all over Europe: Hungary, France, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, everywhere. And most of these women had already lost their family, their children in particular. The sight of a child would break their hearts. I was past 8 by then. This 8-year-old did not care. I would go up to these different nationals. I would ask them to teach me a song in their own language, like Frère Jacques or London Bridge or something like that. Then I'd go off into a corner and practice it. When I thought I knew the song well, I'd go back to the woman that taught me the song. With my hand open, I would sing to her. She would give me whatever little bit of food that she had. She would be crying. She needed the food. I didn't care. I'd become this only self-consumed child. During liberation, I stole a rutabaga and hid it because I was afraid I would eat. I was petrified of being hungry. My aunt and I were liberated by the British in Bergen-Belsen. One of my brothers was liberated in a place called Buchenwald. The other of my brothers and father were liberated in another country, in Czechoslovakia, a place called Theresienstadt. And we went into refugee camps from there. We needed medical attention. We needed to find a way to get off German soil. And we needed to advertise that. And the Red Cross, Quakers, Jewish organizations, churches, all came into these camps, took this information. My brother Jacob put ads everywhere. We all did. I am Jacob Norych, looking for family anywhere. My father actually had a brother in the United States whose last name was not Norych, it was Warshawski, because he came over with an ancestor who didn't speak a word of English. He didn't speak English. On Ellis Island, they took the same name. It just made life easier. So my uncle, of course, recognized the town, the last name, and he raised heaven and earth and got us to the United States on the first boatload of refugees to come out of the Holocaust. Now, before I take your questions, and I invite you to ask me anything, if I don't want to, I won't answer. Yes, before you ask me, usually people are very apologetic. This is personal, you may not want to answer it. Yes, guys, I've had therapy, it's okay. I'm not frothing at the mouth, I'm not a serial killer, and it's helped me when I've needed it. Please understand that I do not understand how anybody can be spiritual in any way. It doesn't matter to me where your spirituality comes from. It's of no interest to me. How you can be spiritual and believe in a higher power and be a racist, a bigot, and anti-Semite. What is going through your brain? Huh? What is it you're thinking? This higher power looked down one day and said, "Whoops, I made blacks and Asians and Hispanics and reds, yellows, and all shapes and sizes of people. I made a mistake. I think I'll call on Tom Metzger, an avowed neo-Nazi white supremacist, and ask him to help me? I think not. You cannot be a little bit racist or bigoted or anti-Semitic. Impossible. It's like being a little pregnant. You either are or you're not. And if you are, guess what? There's a cure. No medicine, no prescription, just self-examination. There will always be unfairness and racism and anti-Semitism and bigotry. We were given a gift and a curse of free will. What we do with that free will, that's up to you. Is it going to thrive in open botanical gardens, very chic to be a bigot or a racist or an anti-Semite? Or are those people that want to wear white sheets and funny hats going to meet in dark alleys behind closed doors somewhere? That's up to you. You are the leaders of the future. You know what drives me? What drives me is that I do not want to give my enemy, Hitler, a posthumous victory by being less than human, less than purposeful in my life. If you let someone else define you, say to you, oh, you're never going to amount to much, and you oblige them, you've given away your power. It is your power to make this world better. And the way to do it, sounds arrogant, I hope you don't think so, is to start right here. You join a club, they're bigoted, leave the club. Only don't leave in silence, for God's sake. Say something. Do something. Say, I like this club. But I see that you're very select, and I call it racism, or I call it anti-Semitism, and I'm leaving. The world was silent. Look the other way. Maybe it'll go away. Listen, guys. You don't even have to like me to understand this. If I'm not safe, you're not safe. And if you're not safe, I'm not safe. Do you think for one moment that if Hitler had succeeded in killing all the Jews of Europe, that he would have stopped there? Think again. Thank you all very much. I'll take your questions. The question is, as a preschool teacher, how do you teach tolerance to little children? Basically, that's the question. I think you start in utero, is my answer. Now I'm getting questions about what do you say to kids about Clinton. Either I'm very stupid or I'm very smart. I can't decide which. Because sometimes I wonder, some things are very simple to me. We envision things as being very difficult, so I think so that we don't have to do anything about them. What's the difference if I send $1 to the children of Rwanda or something like that? Send the $1, just exercise. With young children, I would explain their behavior. I would say, when a young child comes at you and says, so-and-so doesn't like me, I would say to them, he doesn't have to like you. Is he treating you fairly? So that a child understands right away that you don't have to love everyone. I'm not expecting that when you all leave here, we'll all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. No. Just the opposite. I want us to celebrate our differences. So I would start very early on explaining to children the concept of justice without using the big words. That's my method. Right here. The question is, have I ever been back to Poland? No, I've never been back to Poland. I have no desire to go back to Poland. I have no memories, really, of Poland before the camps. My brother's children have been back. I urge you to go everywhere to broaden your horizons. I'm not telling you not to go. It's just, I have no reason to go. It's just, Any other questions? Right here.
Yeah, for those that are disabled or having how would you go about telling them to resolve their differences and just to go on with life?
Well, to me, the gentleman wants to know if you're disabled. First of all, people that are challenged in any way would not survive under Hitler for 2 seconds, okay? I think you know that. You know.
I'm fully aware of that.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. The spirit, if you can think and speak and find a way to communicate, we need you to be prosperous and alive. If you want to be consumed, look, we all feel sorry for ourselves at times. That's just human. But I would say every precious soul on this earth that's able to communicate in any way and ennoble our lives, enlighten our lives, please don't waste it on hating. Don't do it. We need you. Sir.
Yeah, my question is, do you view abortion as a form of genocide? And if so,
Okay. Okay, yeah, I've been asked before. It's a fair question. I thank you for the question. Do I view abortion as a genocide? Let me tell you right now, what you see is what you get. I'm totally pro-choice. Opposed to willy-nilly abortion. Okay, these are my opinions. I do not speak for all survivors, all women, all Jews. My opinion. I am opposed to willy-nilly abortion. Okay, is that clear? I am pro-choice. I am in no way do I compare the Nazi Holocaust to the pro-choice life movement. When we were pushed into the ovens of Auschwitz, we had no choice. I would march with anyone that's pro-choice. I would hold their hand and march for their right to be that way. But I do not understand not respecting other ways of looking. There are no accidents in this room. We all have been empowered with reason and whatever, and we make choices that are not going to please all of us. I am totally opposed to killing viable people in the name of preventing whatever. That's all. And I'm telling you, I would march, even though I am pro-choice, with someone that's opposed to pro-choice for their right to be that way. But I wouldn't lift a finger to hurt anybody in that case.
Elane, there's a question here.
Okay, right there. I sort of tend to look one way, so remind me. Yes.
yeah, I was told that Hitler was a Jew,
Uh-huh.
so he was Jewish. Is that so?
Very important. Thank you, guys. These questions, I mean, sometimes I just... This gentleman says that he was told that Hitler was Jewish. I've heard it said another way, that he was part Jewish. Yours is even more powerful. He was not Jewish. He was not part Jewish. He was in no way, shape, or form Jewish. Now, why? Why would anybody say that? I'm going to tell you. Because if you have a fight with somebody in someone's family, and then you go to another member of that same family, and that person says to you, oh, wonder what took you so long. I can't stand him either. It's my brother. You can now say, you think it's me? Even his own brother can't stand it. Makes it more powerful. Then why would anybody say it? They're anti-Semitic. That's why they said it. You guys, I hope you're taking critical thinking classes. Not everything written, although let me tell you, I worship the printed word when it's from decent sources, even when I disagree with them. Don't come at me and tell me big deal, so I drew a swastika or I called somebody a name. Words are powerful. Words lead us to war and to joy and to dance and to sing. Shakespeare, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Moses, Jesus. All of these words live long beyond us, so they're very powerful. But misused, they're very hurtful. And that's a ridiculous lie. It's an overt lie. And somebody will say to me, but I read it somewhere. So, do you hold the, what is it, the Inquirer the same as Will and Ariel Durant? You know, come on, guys. But thank you for asking the question. One more from this side, then I'll look that way.
How was it for you when you got to the U.S. and your family, and how did people treat you?
The question is, how were we treated once we came to the United States? We were quasi-celebrities. We were treated very well. I was it was a little past 9 when I entered kindergarten. Went to a parochial school for a while because my father wanted me to be able to have someone to ask if I got into trouble, you know, and we spoke Yiddish in my house. Nobody there spoke Yiddish. Everybody was learning Hebrew. So when I was learning English, I was learning Hebrew. When I went into public school, I had to take a language, so I took Spanish, so I was learning Spanish. And I speak to children who are immigrants through interpreters, and we always laugh about that. You know, that it's doable. Let me go in the back there a little bit. Yes?
How did you react to being treated well coming straight from the Holocaust?
The question was, how did I react to being treated well? Well, as a child, it was easier for me. I loved the attention. I loved the goodies that came my way. I'm really processing a lot of this stuff now that I'm older and alone, and I can begin to see the holes in the survivor community. So for me, this is a difficult time. But I loved being pampered. What's not to like? Guys, let me try right here, and then I'll come back to you.
Is it possible that you can explain what the difference in guidelines between non-Jews? How are they killing?
The question is the difference between the killing of the Jews and the non-Jews. In the final end, there is no difference. They were all dead. But know ye that even the undesirable non-Jews were kept separate from the Jews. There was nothing lower than a Jew. Hitler didn't want imperfection. He wanted a master race. So he killed disabled people, emotionally ill people that didn't go along with his theory. And they were treated somewhat better, although not well. Yes?
The Central Valley here is not as bad as the community does, you know, the Bay Area, much less, you know, the LA area. And it was experience. And as big a population as we've got here in this junior college, I wonder just how many, you know, if somebody was informed, you know, English students love black very good.
Like Hillel.
I wonder how many people would actually participate because the few that I did know, try to keep it under the carpet, don't stay it out.
Well, that's the illness of all minorities. May I say it's not exclusively Jewish. You know, what's his name? Dershowitz wrote that book called Chutzpah, which means unmitigated gall, you know. I'll give you the definition of chutzpah. Actually, the Menendez brothers were the definition of chutzpah. They killed their parents and threw themselves on the mercy of the court as orphans. You know. But anyhow, minorities, as a rule, of which we are one, Dershowitz says, if when someone with your cultural, let's say Italian surname or Jewish or whatever, if commits a crime and you cringe and you say, oh God, what will they think of us? Then you are not really a first-class citizen. I have a lot of problems with American Jewish people who are worried about what, whoever they will think. Those of us in the Jewish community, have a right to have murderers and prostitutes and scholars. We don't have to be, a minority does not have to be better than anyone else in order to be treated equally, guys. I don't understand that. I am never again going to be afraid to be who I am. Never. I've paid the price, I might as well enjoy it. So, yeah, I think that's a problem. Self-hatred in every group is a problem, wherever it comes from. And it's very sad to me. Right? Yes?
We just saw it on
how I could. I could. About the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, which was extraordinary. My son was in graduate school and saw a documentary and saw me at the barbed wires. I mean, he wasn't sure. And it was, maybe it's the same documentary. It came out of PBS in Boston, right?
We have it
I
here
have
on
that
campus.
somewhere in my home. I don't even know where.
Elaine, we have it here on campus.
Excuse me?
We have it on campus.
Okay, so it was extraordinary. I didn't fully understand it, but what you saw was hordes of Nazi officers ripping off stripes and medals and whatever it is they wore, because only the officers were tried in the Nuremberg trials or had to answer for war crimes against humanity. So suddenly there were no officers. Everybody was a foot soldier. And it was, as I mentioned early on, I did not understand what was going on. But one of the pastimes that I had as a child, and I have the book here with me to show you, was I used to spend a lot of time at the barbed wire looking out at what looked like a building, like a two-car garage maybe. But on the outside of it was mountains of human flesh. And listen, I don't know how much time we have, but I will tell you this. It brings up an interesting point. I am not afraid of dead bodies. It doesn't frighten me. Why? Because that's how I lived. That's what I became acclimated to. What frightens me are shadows. I'm afraid because I was hidden in my head. I hid a lot. So I don't understand when the media tries to tell me that a child watching sitcoms and cartoons when problem solving is done by physical force, trapping someone or something, few hours a day, that child is not going to therefore conclude, this is a good way to solve a problem, just punch somebody. The same people who say that it has no effect on them, and I'm telling you it does, also pay what? Millions of dollars for 30 seconds of advertising time during the Super Bowl. If they think in 30 seconds you can be effective, think about what can happen to a child watching violence as a means of solving problems. Just think about it. They don't want me on that committee because you can understand why not. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I belong, yes, let me just address that issue. The question is, am I connected to a religion? I am Jewish. That's my religion. It's a peoplehood. It's the club I belong to. Now, Judaism, if you're born of Jewish parents, you need never go to synagogue, you need never do anything, you're a Jew. Some more observant, some less. We have Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox, etc. That's a fairly modern concept. In Christianity, you affirm your faith when you're baptized, so that's different. I don't have to do anything. I'm Jewish. What the literature shows, and we're getting to the end, so I'll finish with this, is that there were people that were extremely observant, very orthodox, very religious. And some of them, when they lived through that, said, if God could watch this, they didn't say, I'm not going to be Jewish. They just said, I'm not going to be observant. The reverse happened as well. The reverse happened as well. Those that weren't that observant said, if I survive this, I need to thank a higher power. In my case, I need to believe that there's some reason why I had to live through this, or I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. If I thought it was just a silly exercise, I don't think I could make it. In that spirit, I thank you for caring, and thank you for having me here.
Ms. Seller, we're really pleased and honored to have you with us today, and we do have 2 gifts for you. First is a genuine Delta College sweatshirt. When you wear it, we want you to think of us, and you are an honorary student when you wear it.
Yes.
And secondly, I have a bottle of the college's wine. It's a Barbera. It's the award winner from the Los Angeles County Fair as the best of the reds, and it's developed by our students, faculty, and staff. So this is a drink of fellowship. Enjoy.